Hey everybody, it's Josh Olive with Haven Comics, the best comic book store on Slaughter Road at our address by far. No other one at that address is any good at all, so definitely shop with us. Uh, Welcome back to our Shop Talk stream where we talk about comics, comic shops, the industry in general, movies we like, games, whatever floats our boat. We'll be talking about it, and we have a really cool guest on tonight. So stick around, and if you haven't already done it, hit the like button, all that jazz, while we play the intro. And just like that, I'm back. It's a miracle. But that's what happens when you believe in comic books and the healing power of sequential art. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm showing off my new action figures that I have with my G.I. Joe 21 there. That's a classic pairing right there. And of course, I've got Timber here in the front because why wouldn't you do that? Speaking of things that go great together, like Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter and chocolate, peanut butter, and pretty much everything else, it's time for me to introduce Alan. What's happening, man?
You know what? Just sitting here loving life and living acetate cover free.
Well,
for those of you that are following the E2C2 controversy,
we can talk about some. We can talk about that here in a minute because that's a whole new thing, man. That is bizarre.
Honestly, I'm sick and tired of the whole controversy. It happened. My biggest question, and it's really going to be on you to get the answer for it because I just don't know him the way you know him. We really need to find out from Jeremy Long at the Huntsville Pop Culture Expo if we can get the social media influencer line cut deal.
That's a good point. At the expo, we should be able to score line cutting deals. I'll have to work on him about that. I'll tell you, that would have made getting the signatures from Kevin Eastman a whole heck of a lot easier this past April.
Yes,
instead, I had to wait because Justin had his little fast pass, and he went through the line twice. The second time, just to show Kevin Eastman something stupid on his phone.
You gotta love Justin.
I could have strangled that boy. That was infuriating. But, you know, it is what it is. But an influencer fast pass to the front of the line would have been really great for me, and I would have taken it. Absolutely.
Would have done it in a heartbeat.
So let's see who all we got on. We've got Tots. What's up, Tots? How you doing, sir? Appreciate you joining us. Some guy named Alan. Who's this Breedlove dude?
You know what? He just shows up in bizarre places. He's like a bad rash.
Itchy, too. Mike Wesolowski. What is happening, Mike? Glad to see you on board with us. We got a Transformers fan, I'm guessing, because Laserbeak is in the house. How you doing, Laserbeak? Yeah, as Mike says, good old Justin. Yep, we've got Justin stories we could share for days. Bill Fisher. Yo, Joe. We appreciate that.
Yo, Joe.
Since Alan isn't able to do that in the comments like he used to, we appreciate you carrying on the tradition, Bill. And Tots, yeah, it's like a good rash, or yeah, either way. But man, I'm glad you guys have joined us. We're looking forward to everybody else jumping on. I'm just excited to talk to our guest tonight. He's somebody I've known online a little bit for a few years. He writes a lot of stuff that I've been following, and then he branched out to do his own thing. We're going to talk about that some. And I'm sure he has some great stories to share from that because he did some things, took some chances, and he's doing his own thing, which is totally awesome. So I would like to introduce Edward Uvanni. I assume I said Uvanni right. Did I say Uvanni right?
Hey, guys. Yeah, you definitely got it right.
I'm going to guess that's an Italian name.
It is. You're absolutely correct.
So do you have thoughts on pasta and sauces, or do you just not care? Are you a Italian?
No. I'm a practicing Italian.
Being a practicing Italian, do you break the spaghetti noodles or do you not break the spaghetti noodles before you throw them in the water?
Sir, do you even have to ask that question? You definitely... No, I'm sorry. You definitely do not break the pasta. It goes in whole. You put it down as it cooks.
So look, we're teaching y'all stuff on this channel on top of everything else.
I'm doing what I can to, spread the pasta love.
Well, everybody, we apologize. Edward's camera is not playing with StreamYard, the platform we use. More likely, StreamYard is not playing with his camera. But we decided just to run with it because his logo for his store is this awesome hand with all that kind of turn of the century art. And it's got the eyeball, so it's like we're looking at him anyway.
Yeah, the logo is basically me anyways. I'd love to share my wonderful bearded face with you guys, but my camera just decided to crap out tonight. So, tech, right?
Right. I if I were a tech guy, I wouldn't have a comic book store.
Well, I am a tech guy, and I don't have a comic book store. So,
see, there you go.
There you go.
That's never the twain shall meet, I think, is really what we're saying.
We cannot cross paths.
So
it would be like the 8th seal of the apocalypse.
That would be, and there's only 7.
Exactly.
Oh my God. So I got something I want to share with you guys. Hey, Ryan is in the house. Appreciate you joining us, Ryan. And Tom Price, too. Oh, yeah, I was going to ask this question. What is your favorite pasta there?
Honestly, I really like a good gnocchi. The potato pasta.
Oh, man.
I love a good gnocchi. But for regular pasta, I like a good cavatappi. I think there's a nice, I don't know, cavatappi's got a good, nice texture. It can hold the sauce real well.
Yep.
It's just a good, solid pasta. One of my favorites.
It's got a little bit of a bite to it, but it's not so thick. It's not so thick that it's like you're working at it.
Yeah, definitely. But you can do like a light sauce. You can do a heavy, chunky sauce. It's got a lot of options. So,
but you had me at gnocchi, brother.
Oh man, yeah, I love a good gnocchi.
There's nothing like frying up a little bit of gnocchi, just a light sauce, and I like a good butter sauce with some garlic and basil. Oh man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite recipes, and I know we're not talking comics here, but one of my favorite recipes is like it's just a pan-fried gnocchi in butter with toss a couple of scoops of pesto and pine nuts in there and sauce. Cook up some sausage, pesto, and pine nut gnocchi. It'll knock your socks off.
I'm totally on board with that because sausage is appropriate with any meal.
You're not wrong there either.
My cholesterol says otherwise, but I'm just here to say sausage is my favorite. Pork in general, but sausage is by far the most flexible of meats, and it's wonderful. I love it. I feel like I'm in the wrong show right now because I just ate, so I'm not hungry, but I'm hungry again.
Not
I don't even know how that happened.
Look, I'm sorry. That's what happens. You invite me on the show and we just talk about food.
Ryan just had some good tortellini. There you go.
Man, you can't go wrong with tortellini either. It's another great pasta.
So before the New World and all this, and they brought tomatoes back to Europe, Italian food had to have been so different because Italian food uses a lot of tomatoes.
Well, I'm not going to claim to be any expert on regional cuisines over there or anything. I mean, I know a little bit, but there's a lot of different food that doesn't necessarily require tomatoes. Down in southern Italy, you got a lot with fish. There's a lot of options that don't necessarily require the tomato.
That's true. So I do have a question while we're talking about cool stuff and whatnot. Did you pick up anything this week that you were particularly happy and proud to get? I asked because I did, and I want to show it off.
I didn't pick up anything super cool myself this week.
Alan?
I will be picking up something super cool tomorrow. It has something to do with a guy named Etrigan that just happens to be in my box that's been waiting on me, and tomorrow is the day that I give him a happy home.
Is that a first appearance?
It is definitely a first issue.
Awesome. Very
That's
cool.
a good question, Keith. What did we call electric eels before electricity was really discovered? Ouchie eels. I don't know.
Stingers?
But I'm going to show y'all something that I picked up, and I'm going to embiggen myself to do it because I have been after this book for years, and you just can't find the daggum thing. So I finally got my hands on one, and it's one of my all-time favorite covers of any comic ever. So here it is.
Nice.
That's great.
Finally got my Silver Surfer number 4. That cover right there, man. Oh man.
That's just a classic. Man, so good.
Oh, Buscema was killing it with this cover.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Silver Surfer 4.
No, that's I could go on eBay and buy it, but that's not fun. Right.
Honestly, you can't go wrong with any cover from that era. I mean, the art it's just in a different league at that time.
No, you're pretty much right.
I mean, nothing against the artist, the cover artist today, but the art back then was just totally different league.
Well, this cover, for example, this tells you what's going on in the book. It's not just a portrait of somebody standing there looking thoughtfully off into the distance. A lot of covers these days are just portraits. They could go on any issue. It doesn't matter because it doesn't have anything to do with what's inside the book.
And the feet on that book look good too.
Yeah, good feet. Yep.
Yeah, I think that is one of the problems with a lot of modern books is they don't tell you anything. It's just an image of a face or a bland action shot, kind of like a frozen still. Like, I think we really need to get back to those days of covers kind of telling you what's in the comic. I think it would help sell more comics.
I absolutely think it would help sell more comics because what you've got now is, it's so generic. Yeah, it's beautiful art, but it's so generic. It doesn't entice me to read the book. It says if you like Batman, he's in this book. I mean, that's all it tells you, right? It doesn't tell you this is a fight between Batman and the Penguin with Riddler and Joker in the background. It doesn't tell you anything like that. It's just here's this character. That's it. Good luck.
Well, and sometimes, I mean, we're not even getting into variants, which could have characters that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual character in the book, which is, insane to me.
My single biggest pet peeve is when the company who shall remain nameless does like random character month, and we're going to have these variants all month with this character just showing up in all the other covers. What does Mary Jane have to do with the Fantastic Four? What does Mary Jane have to do with Silver Surfer? Why is she on that cover? It drives me insane.
Well, it's just like literally, the Joker just finished up. I thoroughly enjoyed the Joker. I thought
that was a good series.
15 issues. I thought it was a great series, but smack dab in the middle of all those covers is a Suicide Squad cover. Why?
Because there was a movie.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't need all that. And it wasn't even a good movie to begin with.
It was fun, but it wasn't my favorite movie. Now, Edward, we've just jumped right in and started talking, but we haven't really talked about you a whole lot. You've got a really interesting background in the comics business.
Yeah.
Tell everybody a little bit about that. How did you get started? Maybe even go back further. How did you become a nerd? What is your origin story?
Oh man, I love a good origin. I mean, don't we all love a good origin story, right?
Yes.
I mean, nothing too exciting. I started reading comics when I was a little kid, about 9, 10. But like, I'd always been into comics as art, like newspaper comics, starting from there. And then, when I was a kid, we had a foreign exchange student stay with us, and he gave us some Asterix books. So like I was exposed to I was exposed to Asterix real early. And then, we had obviously, eventually I found, Spider-Man, and that was the game changer. Amazing Spider-Man. So, for a bunch of years when I was a kid, I had a subscription to Amazing Spider-Man where I'd get in the mail every month, just show up.
Nicely
which was
folded
always
down the middle?
No, they were past the subscription crease at that point.
The subscription crease days, okay.
Yeah. This is when they were mailing them flat, so like early 90s. So you would get it flat, and it would just be in like, the cheapest poly bag imaginable and like the thinnest cardboard, and somehow it would arrive undamaged. But now if you shipped a book that way, it would just disintegrate into dust in the postal service. Like, but somehow they got away with it. Somehow they got away with it back then, So, from there, it was just, I got into card games a little bit back in the 90s, early into Magic the Gathering in high school and, D&D, stuff like that. And then around 2006, I was managing this game store in town where I was living. And the owner was kind of a shady dude. Who I wasn't really aware of how shady he was at the time, but later came to understand a whole bunch of stuff.
I had a similar experience.
Yeah. So, and eventually, as you begin to realize all that shadiness, it's like, oh, you need to get out of there. It's not a good situation. Time to find something else. So, one of the comic stores in the town I was living, Lakeland, Florida, they were... it was not the store I shopped at, by the way. The other comic shop in town. Yeah, I know. The other comic shop in town needed a manager. I heard they were hiring. So I figured, what the heck? I'm into comics. I read comics. I'm into games. I know games. So let me go apply. And I remember I went and I talked to the owner who happened to be in town that day. He was like, yeah, okay, you can come down. We'll do a little interview in the store. So I went into this little store and talked to the owner for, 15, 20 minutes. And that was Phil Boyle, who from the online forums and everything.
Yep.
And then I didn't hear anything from Phil for about 2 weeks. And then finally I called him and I was like, hey, so what's going on with that position? He was like, oh, yeah, okay. Okay, you're hired. Can you come in on this date? We'll get you started. So he hired me to run his small comic shop. And there's a whole huge backstory, which is kind of insane, about why he was looking for someone. The old owner had just kind of disappeared into the middle of the night.
Wow.
Yes. No, it's a whole thing, but I don't really want to get into that. So anyways, his option at the time was either hire a new manager or shut the store down. Because it was a small store. He could move what inventory was there elsewhere. So he was kind of gambling and saying, what are my options? So they decided to take a chance on me. And so they brought me into Coliseum of Comics back in 2006 as a store manager. And I say store manager, but it was really just me in a 600 square foot box in the middle of nowhere.
That's a pretty small store. You're not kidding.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, my shop now is about 600 square feet, but it's definitely not in the middle of nowhere. And it's definitely not a box. It's a well-lit, on a busy street.
Oh, you have a classy looking store. I love your whole vibe that you have going on with it.
Oh, no, thank you. One of my friends called it a high-end comics boutique. And honestly, I'm not going to argue with that because that's really the vibe we've kind of gone for, and it's working for us. I get comments all the time about how people really dig the vibe of the store just because it's clean, it's minimal. I try to but it's purposeful. I really try to let the comics and the artwork speak for itself. And as retailers, sometimes we all get so obsessed over how much rent is this item taking up, how much square footage, what's your profit per square foot. But
I'm lucky. I'm blessed. I can't do math, so I don't think about that.
Well, some people do. But sometimes we end up a little cluttered, and sometimes we end up, and we can't let this beautiful art just breathe and tell its own story. Yep. And so that was one of my goals with making an open, inviting space, was to do that sort of thing. But anyways, so Phil brought me on. I had a whole whopping 2 weeks of training where they sent somebody over to just kind of walk me through how they did things. And
first store I ran, I got 45 minutes of training. Well, and I was 17 years old.
Did you have any retail experience at that point at all?
None whatsoever.
Oh, man. Okay.
And so I was a one-man band at a store 30 minutes away from the main store.
Oh, wow.
I literally got 45 minutes. Here's the keys. Good luck.
Wow. Okay. Man, I thought Phil threw me to the wolves, and that's even rougher, you know? No, they gave me about 2 weeks of not really intensive training, but I had already had some, like retail work. I already knew how to, make change and run a register and stuff like that. But yeah, so they just kind of left me alone after that. So I got some games up and running, started building the comics back up because the store was really kind of in a bad place when I took it over.
Yeah.
So within a year, I was telling him we had to move to a bigger space.
Nice.
Yeah. And so we saw the sales increase, and we saw some good business, but we were too far out in the middle of nowhere, and obviously location is so important especially for a niche business like a comic shop. So after a year, we moved into a space that was about 1,200 square feet. And we were right in downtown location.
That didn't work out at all.
No,
that was weird.
Well, I was actually stalking your Instagram because
Sure.
That was good, and I found a really good picture of the storefront.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, love the way that it looks on here. And since that just went all manners of haywire, I'm just going to do this, and then we will.
Yeah, his current store kind of has this whole. It's like if an Apple store was set up during the industrial age.
Man, see, you guys, you're getting it. That's exactly what I was going for
I
sure. So
love it. It's a beautiful look. I mean, and it goes with your logo. We'll get to all that stuff. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. So we moved to a bigger store, and sales kept growing, and eventually I ended up being a store manager for Phil for 12 years. Just through a few different locations. And I'd been asking him for a while. I was like, hey, I kind of want a bigger role in things. And Coliseum is, for people who don't know, Coliseum of Comics is one of the biggest retailers in the country, in the world, actually, for comics. They have 9 brick and mortar stores throughout Florida, and primarily brick and mortar without a huge web store presence. It's a brick and mortar experience, and some of the best looking stores out there. Professionally, man,
they are all very sleek and well put together. Yeah,
man, the statues Phil gets in are just nuts. All those
how does he get those things? He's got those life-size Hulk statues. Where does he get those?
I don't know. He finds them. He goes on the hunt for them, and then he pays to have them redone. So he's got all those fancy Hulks. It's nuts.
I mean, they're massive. They're 12, 14 feet tall. They're huge, and they are perfectly to scale. Like, this is what the Hulk would look like if you met him in real life.
Yeah, I think they're about 8 to 10. They're not quite 12 feet, I don't think, but they're about 10 feet tall. They're pretty close.
All the pictures I've seen must be with short people next to him.
And that could be. But man, he goes above and beyond. Anyways, so eventually I got moved up to a sort of like a general manager, regional manager. So I was overseeing the day-to-day of 7 of our locations, which, man, if you want stress running one comic shop, try running 7.
Nope.
So that's, so I did that for a couple years. And, obviously at that point I was doing a lot of the FOC for Phil at that point as well.
That's
I was doing
final order cutoff for anybody who doesn't know.
Yep, final order cutoff. So I was basically handling a lot of the new comics, and then overseeing the day-to-day of 7 stores, which was a lot. And then in 2019, my wife and I relocated to Minnesota. So obviously, I couldn't do the general manager thing anymore, just not being local. But Phil wanted to keep me on, and I wanted to stay working for him. So I became their new comics director. And basically, if it had to do with new comics, FOCs, any of that stuff, that was on my plate. Plus, at the time, I was running, and I know you guys were a participant, I was running the Comics Omnivore program, which
was so great.
It was a fun program that got derailed by COVID, to be honest.
Yep.
But yeah, the Omnivore program was a great, when Phil came to me with that, he was like, do you want to run this? And I was like, yes, definitely. Let's do it. I mean, especially considering he stole the name from me to begin with. So, it was nice of him. It was nice of him to offer me to run the program for him. That was cool.
We explained it to all the folks we had at the time, but it's been a little bit. Explain what that program was for folks.
So the Comics Omnivore program, the whole idea was we wanted to work as a bridge between publishers, retailers, and fans to help kind of, if you guys get the previews catalog or you look online at the upcoming solicitations, there's so many books coming out. And I mean, even now, there's more books and more publishers than ever. I mean, have you seen how many new premier publishers Diamond seems to have these days? That
it's almost like they're itching to get more revenue.
You would think. So, at the time, though, we really wanted to make it where basically we were trying to create a network of stores who were all focused on promoting the same title at the same time. And the idea was the publishers would give the retailers returnability on this. In return, the retailers would order up and offer it to our customers at discount for the first issue. And it was a nice way to hopefully encourage sales while encouraging sales to stores and to customers as well. Hey, we'll give you a break. And not only that, we stand behind this book because not only do we stand behind it, but there's, 60 other stores standing behind this book as well, which I think was a really cool thing. And I mean, we launched with Once and Future, which was a huge hit for Boom. I mean, I don't want to say that Omnivore was responsible for that, because clearly Boom had a great book with a great writer and a great artist on it. Dan Mora, Kieran Gillen, like, great book. But we launched with that book, and it launched big for Boom. Like, that was kind of their first really big modern success, was Once and Future. And, I thought that was really cool. So Omnivore was just a great program. We got to work with some cool publishers. I think we got to promote some cool books that I thought were great reads. And so that was a cool
thing. One of our folks has got a cry cut machine. And we made this cool thing with the Omnivore logo that was a frame that we put up on the new comics wall.
I remember you showed me a picture, and it was really super cool. Like, that was really awesome.
We would always put that comic, there you go, it's in this frame. So it worked out well. You knew which was the Omnivore book of the week.
Man, that's so great. And, I mean, from the feedback I did get from retailers, the retailers who played along and bought into what we were trying to do did see some success with it. So, that was cool too. It helped get some more cool books into people's hands who might not have checked out that title otherwise, So for a couple years I was running doing all the new comic stuff. So I did that for Phil remote for through November of last year, actually. And then it had always been kind of one of my dreams to open up my own shop. Obviously, I think anybody if you've been a store manager for that, 12 plus years, you've at least thought of it, I would imagine. Yeah. So my wife and I, last summer, we moved out of Minnesota and we moved to upstate New York, where we are now. We're in a town called Hudson, which is a really cool little town. We're only about 2 hours from New York City. We're only a couple hours from Canada. Like, it's just a cool area. And so, we'd kind of talked about, because Minnesota wasn't really a good place for it at all. We were in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, the last place you'd want to open up a comic shop, But Hudson was a cool town, and it had no comic shop at all. So we just decided to go for it, and here we are.
So it may not be as crazy as it sounds, given your background, your history, and where you came from. But I sit there, and I'm looking at it going, all right, you got a guy who Diamond just lost being the one place you could go, the one-stop shop for you to order all comics, right? And so, okay, DC has pulled the plug, and they're off doing their own thing now. So now I have twice as many headaches. And now you have to do the cost-benefit analysis between Penguin Random House and Diamond for your Marvel books, and now IDW too. So you're looking, okay, now I got 3 times work potentially. from a normal month-to-month ordering process, returns process, damages reporting, how many different checks do I have to write? All that stuff is just times 3. You're dealing with COVID, and the whole world is in some state of turmoil because of COVID.
Yep.
Everything is completely uncertain, and in the midst of all that, you said, now is the time.
I mean, I called my shop Pure Folly Books for a reason, right? You know, like, I mean, honestly, I'd had the name for a long time, kind of sitting around, but it works when you open up a physical retail store in 2022 or 2021, as the case may be. There's a lot of that, but some of the issues you brought up, I tried to mitigate through my decisions, obviously.
Right.
So one, I'm primarily a graphic novel and back issue store. Those are my 2 focuses, graphic novels and back issues. I am happy to carry periodicals, but for a lot of the reasons, and I mean, you know how many talks we've had about these issues lately collectively as retailers. It seems to be the never-ending conversation. But I think for me, graphic novels are an easier sell to people, and periodicals come with so many headaches. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I grew up on comics. I love picking up a comic book and reading it, but you got to balance it out these days. Diamond's getting more expensive with shipping. PRH has damage issues constantly. And I'll be upfront. I don't order from Lunar because I refuse to give money to DCBS. So I don't even carry DC periodicals right now.
I understand that completely. When the switch happened to Lunar, I essentially polled my customers and said, look,
sure.
This is what's going on, and in order to carry these, this is what I have to do. And I had so many folks who were DC readers. Had this been on the heels of New 52, when the vast majority of my DC readers not only quit DC, they quit comics. New 52 ran off so many of our subscribers. Oh yeah, they couldn't. They were sick of it. They couldn't handle it anymore.
I enjoyed New 52.
You were one of the exceptions.
I think Red Hood and the Outlaws run of New 52 was just freaking spectacular.
Man, Coliseum sauce. I mean, we did lose some folks, a few, I would say, but man, New 52 was a shot of fuel for us. I was the opposite.
Because I had a lot of long-time dedicated readers. I mean, guys who've been reading comics for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
And they were just like, nope, this is it. This is where I draw the line. It wasn't until Rebirth when a lot of people came back. And they were like, okay, I'll give DC a shot again. They just felt like New 52, there was no legacy. There was no sense of history to anything.
I mean, there wasn't.
Right. And
I mean, that was the point.
They hated it. They couldn't deal with it.
And see, and I think that's why it worked so well for me. It was like everything was just fresh all of a sudden.
2 different types of readers, 2 different types of customers. One's going to appeal to one sort of fan and the other's not, and that's the unfortunate aspect with a decision like this, or like New 52, you're going to end up turning some people off. And how many per store is the question.
See, I think had they done what Marvel did and gone with a kind of an Ultimate Universe concept, and run them both simultaneously, I think it would have been great.
Oh, I also think they would have been pretty much just as, or maybe not just as, but close to as big. They could have done both. I mean, you remember how big the Ultimate Universe was when it launched. Man,
it was massive.
Like huge.
See, that launched right when we were opening, because we opened April 2nd, 2001. And everything, the whole Ultimate Universe was fresh and spanking new, shiny when we opened. And that was huge for us. It did gangbusters for us.
Yeah, I bet.
And I think DC could realize a lot, because they have this problem, right? They have it. Marvel has it. They've been trying to get rid of their main characters and replace them for years. The breaking of the Bat, killing Superman, killing Captain America. replacing Thor, getting rid of Mary Jane, getting rid of Peter Parker, bringing in Ben Reilly, all this stuff, because they feel like, to some extent, that the history with those characters is just too much, and they're too old, and they feel like they're just not appealing to a wide enough audience. All that stuff. I think they could solve a lot of their problems by going to more of an ultimate universe kind of thing. Create your own universe over here where somebody else is Batman. Go for it. Just don't take away my Batman.
Well, I mean, it's the double-edged sword of continuity, and the publishers want to have it both ways too. They want to have the continuity to keep those long-term fans, but they don't want it to be a thing for the newer fans to have to pay attention to. I mean, DC's kind of doing that right now with coming
out of that whole Infinite Frontier thing.
Yeah, like, what's in continuity and what's out of continuity in DC right now. And I feel I feel sorry for DC fans who want to try and keep up with everything, because, like, does the Black Label stuff count? Yes, no, maybe. Like, does anything count? When everything counts, nothing counts, right?
That's exactly right.
See, I know a lot of people are getting upset and they're like, do we really need another Batman title? But at the same time, we're getting some great stories that are going on outside of continuity that we don't have to worry about what's going on here or what's going on there. And you don't have to read 25 years of back issues. Like Batman the Knight has been really good so far. Killing Time. I thought Killing Time was great.
I love out of continuity stories. I'm not saying that it's a problem. I'm just saying publishers want to have it both ways.
Yeah.
They want to have the continuity and not have the continuity at the same time, which is, I mean, trying to balance those two things that's a tricky line to walk.
That's what I thought Hickman did so well with the X-Men when he did House of X and Powers of X, right? He made it so that all X stuff that ever happened was canon. But that going forward, they weren't bound by the strictures of any of it. And it was this brilliant tightrope that he walked. And then, of course, Marvel ruined it by going, okay, this brilliant 12 issues that got everybody excited about the X-Men for the first time in 25 years. Let's just throw 12 different X titles at the wall and see if they stick.
And then we're going to do a 22-part crossover. 22-part crossover. Like, I'll tell you what, I loved House of X. I loved Powers of X. I was reading X-Men when Hickman was on it. When he relaunched, I was like, okay, if there's one book you got to follow, it's X-Men, right? Hickman's writing that one. You got to follow X-Men. So I'm reading X-Men. And as soon as they were like 22 parts and you got to read all the books, I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm sorry. I can't do it.
Now, is that the biggest crossover they've ever done, or was Acts of Vengeance from the 90s bigger? So I know Acts of Vengeance, you had to pretty much buy every single comic book ever published by any publisher to get that entire story.
Yeah, that I don't know.
They're pretty close.
I think it's definitely one of the biggest numbered crossovers, like actual, numbered down in the corner crossovers. Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head that's bigger, although there may be one out there.
I have a general rule of thumb with any X-Men title: give me the first 6 issues. Everything after that's going to start sucking, so just cancel it.
That is exactly what he does, Edward.
All right.
He's been doing that for years. He's like, I'll take that. It's issue number 6. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. It's god awful now.
All right, no X-Men Beyond 6, I guess. But no, I totally get what you were talking about with like pulling your customers over the lunar stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess what I was trying to get to though was, being a store that was starting fresh, I had the option to set expectations going in.
Absolutely.
And I don't begrudge any shop who continued to do what they want to do to take care of their customers' needs. Totally. I'm with it. But I think as a new store, I was definitely able to say, this is not something I want to support with my dollars. And I mean, I know there's other people out there as well who are choosing not to support that as well. That was just one of the benefits of being able to open and make those decisions up front. And everybody I've talked to so far has been really chill and understanding about it. And especially if I'm honest about the reasons why, it's like, oh yeah, they did what? Like, honestly, people are in disbelief when I say, yeah, this is what happened. Like, can you imagine being a hot dog vendor and being told that you had to order your hot dogs from the guy across the street who is selling them cheaper than you are? Like, that's
selling
insane.
them cheaper to the public for
Yeah,
what
that's
he
what
would sell them to you.
Right, exactly. That's insane. That's insanity.
Yeah.
So, but no, we're mostly focusing on the graphic novels and back issues, and it's been a good, people who get it seem to be getting it and dig it. We get a lot
we'll
of
come back to your graphic novels in a sec, but
all right.
You said Pure Folly is a name you had for a while, which is a absolutely brilliant name for a comic book store. The minute that you said, this is what I'm opening my store and here's what it's called, and I saw the artwork, I'm like, God dang it, I hate this man, because that's brilliant.
Well, thank you. I the name, I don't know, it just came to me one day. I was like, that's what I'd call my store. It works.
So were you at an old school Wendy's when you had this idea for the artwork? Because you remember those old tabletops at Wendy's that had that turn of the century newspaper kind of stuff?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I do. So I didn't do the art. Actually, I'm going to give a shout out to my best friend, Billy Flake, who is not just my best friend, but he's also kind of like my protege in a way. I brought him into Coliseum, and he now has my old job. So he's he's the director of store ops for Coliseum of Comics now. He's a great dude. Well, he also does some design work on the side, and he actually did all my logo stuff. So he's the dude who put that. He's like, we talked about it, and I was like, kind of like turn of the century, but like, make it a little glitchy, make it a little weird, make it a little occult. Like, that's kind of the stuff I'm into. And he sent me the art files back, and I was like, oh my God, you knocked it out of the park. Like, first pass, no notes, 10/10.
Yeah, he really did. Because the minute I saw it, I was hooked. And then the minute that you posted pictures of what you're using as the stand for your cash wrap, and I thought, man, this guy knows exactly what he's doing with the look of this place. And then you've got those few pictures of the interior of your store, and I love it. I think it's great.
Thank you so much. It's honestly, I'm really proud of it. It's one of the things I get a lot of compliments on. People, like I said, people dig the minimal. People dig the minimal design. People dig the open vibe, and it's clean, it's inviting, and I don't know. I had a vision, and I was able to pull it off. So I'm pretty happy with that.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you have created a community of people up there that your store is their home away from home. Is that right?
For sure. It's, like any business, it's slow going right now, but we're building it up. I've got new folks coming in all the time. The Hudson is a weird town though, because it's a lot of tourists as well. So I get a lot of folks who are just like in town for a few days and then they're gone, or they might come back every few months.
Well, that makes the type of format you're chasing even more logical, because you can grab that while you're on vacation and read it.
And people do all the time, I get people who come in and they're like, I had a guy who was in town the other day for his wedding, and he came in and he ended up buying a stack of graphic novels with his fiance. Like, how are you going to have time to read all these? But he's walking out with a big stack of graphic novels. I'm like, awesome, man. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, that whole time where you're getting your hair done and your makeup and your nails, I'm going to be reading.
Yeah, I just bought a big stack of books, so I'm going to enjoy these while you're off doing whatever.
JR says he's liking the things in the TB trade paperback world, but thinks that might be hurting the industry, which I think is an interesting take on that. I definitely agree that the mindset that they got into of everything should be collected into a 6-issue trade paperback has hurt comics, because they stopped writing stories and started writing chapters of stories and stretching things out that could be told in a shorter space.
Oh, 100%. I think it's one of the biggest issues right now. And I think it's one of the reasons we're seeing so much of a decline in periodical sales to consumers. I think shops are still buying a lot of issues, but I think a lot of shops are over ordering. And I mean, as you know, you order comics for a store, like ordering new periodicals is the trickiest, hardest thing to do in the store. Like getting that number right is nearly impossible.
It's very, very hard to get that number right. And you're trying to balance it, because if you don't order enough of something, you're leaving money on the table and you're not able to meet your customer demands. If you order too much, you're throwing money away and you're stuck with dead product.
I mean, as a reader, I would love to be able to walk in and it not be an annual, and I can actually just pick up some random comic off the shelf and get the entire story one shot and it's done.
Sure. And there's so few books that do that. And I really think, I think as retailers too, we also need to work to promote the books that are doing those things. Grant Morrison's Green Lantern run. I know some people liked it, some people didn't, but man, he was doing single issue old school stories where every issue was a full story, but it ended on a cliffhanger to bring you into the next issue. But it didn't detract anything from the standalone concept of the issue. Like it was like old school comics writing.
I had Tom Brevoort on here. This is actually a funny story. Our convention in 2020, like all conventions, our local convention got canceled.
Yeah.
Actually, it ended up getting pushed back several months and it still happened, but we didn't know that at the time. And this was when, God, what was the name of that story that Marvel was putting out? All the Kree Skrull stuff with
Empire.
Empire, that's right. The oddly spelled Empire, right? So we put out our sign-up sheets. We do all this stuff. We promote Empire. In our pre-orders, we literally had 3 people wanted the big tentpole Marvel event book. And I'm like, that is a problem.
Yeah.
Marvel, this is a Marvel problem. And so I reached out to David Gabriel and said, hey, you got somebody? Yes, Ryan's hitting it. Yeah, it's Empire. But I reached out to David Gabriel and I said, hey, man, our con is canceled. So we're going to do this online convention kind of deal. And I'm just pulling in people to do panels, comic book writers, artists, publishers, you name it. And I actually got a surprisingly good response for being a little no-name store in the middle of nowhere. But I said to David Gabriel, can you get me somebody to talk about Empire and maybe tell my folks why they should read it? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Let me see what I can do. And I didn't know who they were going to get, but he said he was going to get somebody. So I figured, cool. Well, he writes me back and says, Tom Brevoort is going to come on and talk to you.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm like, are you kidding me? That's a way higher up the food chain than I was expecting. Tom Brevoort came on and we talked for about 30, 40 minutes before the panel started.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just me and him talking comics for 2 hours. And then we talked for another 45 minutes after we've gone offline.
Wow.
Nice.
That dude loves his comics.
I follow him on Twitter. Yeah, he definitely loves his books.
As it turned out, we just hit on a lot of the same stuff that I really connected with and that I really loved, like The New Warriors.
Sure.
Was one of his first books that he was overseeing at Marvel. And so we just really hit off the bat out of the gate and talking through that stuff. But
I'm gonna tell you. Sorry, not to interrupt, but just real
go
quick.
for it.
I have, as a small child, I had a letter printed in a New Warriors issue, but I'm not gonna tell you which one because I was like 9.
Okay. A lot of famous people have done that. I mean, George R.R. Martin did it.
Yeah, I know, but they kind of poked fun because I asked like a kid question and like.
Well, you were a kid. Come on.
I know. But anyways, I have a letter printed in a New Warriors issue. So
I'm just gonna go look through them now.
I love the New Warriors. So yeah, I'll let you figure it out.
I tell you, I have a couple of pages of original art from New Warriors up on the wall at the store. And
from the Bagley run.
I'm sorry, what?
From the Bagley run or later?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we had Fabian Nicieza and Mark Bagley were both at the same show for same year for our local con here. And I went up to them the night before at a special VIP thing because I'm good friends with the guy who owns the show. And I went up and I was talking with him and I said, yeah, I got a couple of pages on the wall at the store. And he goes, well, Fabian Nicieza says, well, you have to bring those in. We'll sign them. And I'm like,
oh man.
And they're looking at me like, "Why? You're crazy. Why are you hesitating when we just offered to sign this?" And he goes, "Oh, you've got them in custom frames, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He says, come on, rip them out, bring them down. I'm like, you know what? All right.
Oh my gosh.
So I did, and they both signed them. But they both said, because they'll charge for signatures and stuff. Most everybody does these days.
Oh yeah.
But both Bagley and Fabian said, you know what? We love our new readers community. We love our new Warriors community, rather. The folks who like New Warriors like comics, and they just have this special bond with their New Warriors fans. And said, we don't charge to sign New Warriors books.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is
cool. I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah, when I was a kid, that series had just started coming out, and I loved that book. So, yeah, it was one of my faves.
You remember the issue, I want to say it was issue number 7, where Silhouette she goes into the church and Bengal is in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got that page.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's one of the ones I've got. And the other one I've got is from, I think, number 17. And it's this big fight scene. And you've got Terrax kind of forming in the
Sure.
I couldn't be happier to have those 2 pages. They are awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
I think you are 100% right with this comment. They really need to slow down on the 2 to 3 times a year big world-ending crisis in both companies. I mean, it seems like there's always something going on.
Crisis only happens in one company, and
Well, okay, we have Crisis, and then with Marvel, we've got whatever they want to come out with this week to destroy the X-Men and Homo Superior and all that crap that they do every single day. But I mean, he's exactly right with the comment. I think they could really and truly learn a lesson from some of these smaller publishing companies, like
going back to
AWA.
Tom Brevoort thing, right? Tom Brevoort, one of the things I talked to him about was, look, Immortal Hulk sold really, really, really well for us.
Sure.
And one of the reasons it sold really, really well for us was the first 3 issues, kind of the first 4, but the first 3 issues of that were standalone issues. Right? Yeah. It was a beginning, middle, and an end. And it did kind of lead you into the next one, but it was a standalone issue. And so you come into issue 2, it didn't matter if you'd read issue 1. Issue 3, it didn't matter if you read issue 2. And I asked him about that. I said, it sold really well for us. And one of the reasons it sold well for us, besides the fact that it's good, was it was an easy sell for me to tell people, you don't have to read the next one. This is enclosed in this one story. This one issue is got an entire story in it. And people really latched onto that. They liked that. And so they bought it. And I asked him, I said, that was really successful. Why are you not using that formula more? And he hemmed and hawed and kind of, diplomatically talked his way around it. But he essentially said, we only did that because it was kind of a proof of concept, because we weren't sure that a concept was going to work, because it was pretty dark and twisted.
Wow. Huh.
But he said, so we told the writer, that's how we want that to go, is to do this, and that way we can cut it off and we're not going to leave people hanging.
Yeah, because if they decide it only is going to be 6 issues because nobody's buying a horror Hulk book, Yeah, totally. That's interesting.
It's a shame, though, because it was brilliant. I loved it.
No, yeah, for sure. Good book. That was a fun read.
But something, I guess, that I want to bring up for you, because we have a fair number of indie readers at the store.
Sure.
And by indies, I'm talking, Boom, and I kind of still count Dark Horse as an indie. They probably shouldn't be counted that way, but they are. All these non-big 2, if we just call it that. We have a fair number of readers. But you are kind of into some stuff just based on the things that you post and the things you're looking forward to and the artists and writers that you follow that are a little bit outside of what most of our readers are looking for. I mean, we don't have I think we don't have any subscribers for Copra, for example.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So one of the other nice things about being in Hudson, which is a pretty artsy community, is that, I'm able to carry a lot of I like really weird stuff. I mean, I like everything. That's the fun part about comics, right? Like you can literally read everything. There's so much good stuff out there all the time. So, I mean, I read everything from superhero books to manga to back issues, vintage stuff, underground stuff. But I really love a lot of like weird indie. Like I'm a fan of graphics books guy. Like that's the stuff that I really get excited about. And I work a lot with small press. We carry a lot of small press publisher stuff. Stuff that's, Diamond doesn't even have on its radar. And I work a lot with creators too. I'm always down to support independent creators. So we do a lot direct with individuals doing small press and self-published books as well. Just because I love to support that stuff too.
Do you carry any stuff by Schlepzig?
That is not what I'm familiar with, to be honest.
You'll have to check him out. He is, you talk about a creator with an interesting background.
Yeah.
He was an engineer for 30 years and decided that he didn't want to die that way.
Sure.
So and in addition to that, he also competes as a fencer and teaches fencing.
Wow. Okay.
But he decided to get into comics and to do comics.
Fascinating.
And if you look up Schlepzig, normally Schlepzig would be SCH, but he was doing, I forget what it was. He was logging into something and it wouldn't let you have, he had one letter too many in his username than it would let him have.
Oh, gotcha.
And he's like, if I get rid of the C, you still pronounce it the same. So if you just look up Schlepzig without a C, he's about the only thing that comes up. And he is a comics creator that does some really off the wall and interesting stuff, but he's a cool dude. We had him on our quiz show, 2 months ago or so. Really interesting guy.
No, that's super cool. I will have to check that out. I'm always looking for artists and creators that I'm not familiar with.
I think he's up your way, or at least close. He's closer to your way than Alabama. I'll tell you that.
Oh, gotcha.
So I ended up with some of his stuff at the house. I ended up with that G.I. Joe that the female that he did.
The Baroness that he did, yeah.
Yeah, and some of his art, I know this is going to sound really weird. It actually reminds me of like 50s and 60s Flash tattoo art. Just the way some of it is. I mean, it's really cool, and it's not something that you see every day now.
No, that's cool. I'll have to give it a look.
It's got a more animated style where he does the squashing and stretching and some of that kind of thing. It's not. I studied anatomy for 17 years, and I know exactly how that muscle works. He's like, screw that. I'm just drawing a cool picture.
Yep.
Oh, sure. I think I see some of his stuff here. I just kind of pulled it up while we were talking.
Yeah.
No, he kind of, if I'm on the right, SHLEPZIG, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll have to dig around a little bit more because it keeps wanting to send me to his Insta on my laptop, and that's not working.
Yeah, it probably does. That's where he does the bulk of his stuff.
No, the stuff looks cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit from the thumbnails of do you know Ashley Wood stuff? He does.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of. I hadn't made that connection in my head, but you're right. It has some of that same.
Like just kind of that painterly, exaggerated style a little bit.
Yep. With a little bit of anime thrown in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just from the thumbnails I'm looking at right here, real quick.
You hit the nail on the head. You're exactly right.
No, that's cool.
I guess
I love Ashley Wood stuff.
Oh yeah. One of the things I like all the Ashley Wood stuff I can put on the shelf in my store.
That's fair. I understand.
Ashley Wood has some stuff I can't display down there.
That's true.
But one thing I guess I would like from you maybe is some recommendations for some of your favorite books that are they're not your standard superhero fare, whatever. But there's some stuff that maybe my folks would not have heard of or be familiar with that they might be interested in trying out.
For sure. Yeah. I'm always down to offer recommendations. Obviously, being a retailer, it's what we do all day. So I know you mentioned Copra. I mean, I can't go without pitching about Copra because it's one of the best books out there. But Copra
that's put out by Image, right?
Well, so he went back to self-publishing.
Oh, he did. Okay.
So I think what happened, I don't know for sure, I'm only guessing, is I don't think the issues maybe did well enough at Image, but I think they're probably profitable for him self-publishing them. So Image is going to continue putting out the trade paperback collections.
Okay.
But he's self-publishing again now. So he's back to issues. But Copra is one of my favorite books. That's actually an Image book. If you're an old school Suicide Squad fan, Michael Fife or Fife is he's in love with like 80s DC. So like highly recommended. Copra's great. Love and Rockets.
What's Copra about? Why would people like it?
Well, it starts as a Suicide Squad ripoff. A team of mercenaries out on a mission. Everything goes wrong. He's playing with the concepts of like superhero archetypes. So there's a guy who's basically Captain Cold. You know, there's a guy who's basically Captain Boomerang. But he plays with the characterizations and changes those things up enough to make the characters unique. But if you've read any superhero comics at all, you'll recognize the archetypes he's playing with. There's a guy who's basically Doctor Strange, but then he puts his characters through the ringer, and it has that very old school comic feel to it. And it's just, I don't know, it's just one of the best superhero books out there, in my opinion. His art style, and it's a little. Like he uses a lot of colored pencil for his coloring, which I think is a really cool way because he can get textures and shades that like computer coloring doesn't really give. And I mean, he may be coloring with a computer too. I'm not sure, but man, it's a great book. It hits that superhero itch for me in a classic feeling way.
So I'm guessing I did put the right one up on screen because nobody's yelling at me. Okay.
No, yeah, you got it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a character there who's basically Grace Jones, you know, like front and center on the cover there. It's a fun book, and it scratches that superhero itch while being creatively and uniquely its own.
Nice. All right, what are some other good ones to tell folks about?
I mean, I'm a huge Love and Rockets fan. Obviously, Love and Rockets has been going on for 40 years.
Forever.
There's a whole bunch of trade paperback collections through Fantagraphics. Love and Rockets it started as sort of like a weird sci-fi underground comic and then transitioned more into slice of life type stories for most of its run, although it still plays around with theme and format over the years. But Love and Rockets is awesome. Some of the best cartooning out there. I really like this guy, Matt Allison. Have you heard of him? He actually does a book. He just did a book that was crowdfunded called Cankor. Cankor is the name of the book.
Is that the kind of Conan-ish type book?
No, this looks no, it's not Conan at all. It's I call it weird superheroes because he's playing again with superhero ideas, but it's also about being an artist, and he talks about his own life trying to create these characters, but he mashes these superhero archetypes through like the ringer. So it's like Cankor faces a whole bunch of like faceless versions that look like him, but it's all a commentary sort of on how some of the tropes of superhero comics can get, you know? Like, I don't know, it's just fascinating stuff. And his art style is awesome. A little Jeff Darrow-ish, super detailed, like really, really sweet stuff.
I just saw, God, what was the Jeff Darrow book? I want to say it was Frank Miller and Jeff Darrow, where the cover, on the front cover, he's shooting that guy through the face, and the back cover, you see from the backside of that guy's head through the hole to the guy who just shot him through the face.
Oh, Hard Boiled.
Hard boiled. I just saw a copy of that the other day, and I can never. Jeff Darrow could cram more stuff into a comic book page. Incredible.
I love his Shaolin Cowboy is one of my favorite series. I just love that book. I just love it. But yes, that is Cancor by Matt Allison. He's a super cool dude. He's got an Instagram. I highly recommend his comics. Just a great dude. Great books.
Now, is he self-publishing, or how can I get those through someplace?
If you're interested in carrying it, he does work with retailers. You'd have to hit him up direct.
Okay.
But I think you could probably drop my name. He knows who I am. He's a pal. But he's a great dude. And I'm sure he can probably work with you. So he did a crowdfunder. I actually backed the crowdfunder when he did that at a retail tier to get him into the store. But I know he's been working with some other shops too to get him in. He had a super successful crowdfunder. I think he asked for like $20,000 to do printing, and he got it in like 3 hours. He was funded.
Good Lord.
Yeah, like just an amazing guy with a great comics.
I'm hesitant to say anything about this because there's some controversy erupted eventually that it was weird, but I'll go ahead and just say it. I don't know if you know Aaron Lopresti or if you're friends with Aaron Lopresti at all.
I don't know.
But he's a comic book artist. He's been in the business forever. He's done all kinds of stuff. And I commissioned him a few years ago, because I'm a weirdo, to do a cover or to do a commission for me of Swamp Thing and Ophelia from Hamlet.
Oh, cool.
With her like drowned under the water, right?
Oh, sure. Okay.
I tell you, it's one of the single most glorious images ever. Let me see if I still have it on here, because if I do, I'll post it on screen. You can see it. It's phenomenal. I think I took it off. Yeah, it's gone. Anyway, it's gorgeous. But he was coming out and doing a book of his own, which got me really excited because I've always liked his stuff. And we had been talking about it for months and months and months. And then when he launched his Indiegogo, he did it on Ethan Van Sciver's site. So you know where that controversy is going, right?
Yeah.
But I backed it. I've got a couple of copies. I'm going to be getting more for the store. This is debating over which cover to show you. This is the main cover. I'm going to embiggen myself here a little bit. This is the main cover. It's called Wraith of God.
Oh, that's cool looking.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Western. This is his more like 60s, 70s cover.
Oh, yeah. It's got that retro bar, the Marvel retro bar at the top.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it. The story, the character from Wraith of God is kind of it's like Mysterio meets the Punisher meets Ghost Rider. Which is an odd mix, but boy, does it work. It's really, really painfully good. And I wish there wasn't the controversy around it. Because that makes it difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
And I just want to promote a good story. And it's a good story. The artwork is spectacular. So yeah, I could have done without that, but that's a fun new thing. And yeah, you talk about backing a Kickstarter or something.
Oh, sure.
You believe.
It's interesting because there's so many, I think there's so many people going that route these days. Even publishers going that route these days, the direct to consumer route. I think it's great for artists who are trying to get the word out. I'm less thrilled about publishers doing it. That seems a little, I don't know. Kickstarter is one of those things that was designed for the little guy. To help the little guy. So it's kind of weird seeing successful multi-million-dollar publishers going that route.
Well, we will have copies of that up at the store here pretty soon. I just got these through initial fulfillment. The store copies will be coming in the next couple of weeks. So we'll have those on the wall at the shop if you're looking for them. But yeah, no, I'm 100% with you on Kickstarter. Are you familiar with Jonathan Hedrick?
No.
He wrote some stuff for, I want to say Mad Cave. He's written some stuff for a couple of publishers, but he's doing a fair number of Kickstarter books as a writer. He's got one called Caffeinated Hearts, which I think you would probably like. It's kind of a slice of life thing at a coffee shop.
Oh, okay, cool.
Is that on the shelf now at the shop?
Yes, it is.
I thought it sounded familiar.
Yeah, we've got Caffeinated Hearts on the shelf at the shop right now. He's about to go with his next copy of a book he has called Capable. He won some kind of award for Capable from a group that supports people who have physical handicaps or something.
Oh, cool.
But he's a really cool dude. And there's another guy, Brian. The name he uses professionally is Brian Silverbacks with an X.
Okay.
If you like 90s comics, like early Image, if you like a throwback comic to some early Image comics, that is what that's his bread and butter, man. He lives on that stuff. And he's created his little world called Kara Prime, which is it's a be-all, end-all kind of a deal where you can tell any kind of story you want. And
Sure.
He solicits a lot of other writers like David Galliano and Jonathan Hedrick and all kinds of other guys to come in and write. And they come in and write stories. Other artists come in and provide art for stories. And he's got his second or third Kickstarter up for his world right now.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, there's so many between Kickstarter, between stuff like print on demand.
Yep.
Like, it's so easy to put a comic out these days, which I think is one of the beautiful things about it. There's so many ways for artists to put their work out into the world.
It's just hard for us as retailers to track them, right? Because there's not one
sure.
place to go, and I can't spend all day online looking for who is putting out a cool comic book today.
Sure. And that can definitely be challenging, I think, but I really feel like we're moving towards the era of the curated comic shop. I think we've actually been there for a while, but, there's, it used to be that most comic shops were definitely what you pretty much call full service comic shops. They carried pretty much everything. They usually have a selection of toys, a selection of games, a selection of this or that, and then they might have something they specialized in. Maybe they did sports cards, something like that. But there's too many facets to the hobby these days, and there's too many books, there's too many publishers, there's too much of it, of what we used to call geek culture, to fit into one store anymore. So I think we're really, and as things go on, I think we're really just going to move further and further into the era of the curation. But what I really find fascinating about that is that it helps shops feel more distinct.
That's true.
Because if you come into my store, I'm going to have completely different stuff in there than a lot of other stores are going to have, and that's even right now. But I think it's cool to see guys who are opening up shops that are like just manga shops. And that's all they do. They just do manga. Like, awesome. That's great. I love it. It's more comics out there. So I really feel like curation going forward is going to be the name of the game, especially as you start to, what artists do you want to support? What creators get you excited about comics, At least that's my theory.
Oh, I think you're probably dead on. I kind of feel bad. I do some level of curation when I make our sign-up sheets every month out of the new solicits, right? I don't list everything in the book, right? I'm going through and going, I don't think I have an audience for this. I don't think I have an audience for that, because I have limited space on how much I can put in the sign-up sheets, right?
Well, and nobody knows your customer base like you do.
I just always hate the thought of, should I have included that? Would somebody have bought it? Because it looked cool to me.
But see, I think as retailers, we tend to play the what if game too much.
Well, you're not wrong there.
So, Edward,
yeah,
you just made a comment about nobody knows your customers like you do, talking about Josh.
sure.
Something that I asked the last comic book shop owner that we had on here that I kind of enjoyed his answer because it made him stop and think for a second.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you, and I think that might be the question I ask every comic book store owner from here on out. Based on your clientele, what is one book that you think people in your area are sleeping on right now?
People in my area?
Yeah.
Huh. That's an interesting question. Man.
So you've got an especially tough one with that having a lot of tourism in your town because you've got
it does
people
make it
coming
difficult.
and going. That's a tough one for you.
Yeah, it does make it tough. Trying to think of what I had better hopes for, what I order in that I was expecting to do a little bit better. And I'm pretty picky about what I order in too. There's a few of the new series that I've been trying out that I just, from Image, I've been ordering some of the new Image #1s that I had, kind of hoped were going to do a little bit better. Talking about those, the first issue, I really loved Above Snakes from Image. I don't know if either of you guys read that one.
I haven't read it, but I've got it on the shelf still. It didn't do very well for us either.
Yeah, and I thought it was a really great first issue. It's a standalone. It's a done-in-one story.
Oh, in that case, I'll definitely read it.
It's a done-in-one. You can pick up that comic. It's a Weird West, the genre is Weird West, so Western with a little bit of supernatural elements.
Oh, that's right. That's why I ordered it, because I totally dig Weird West books. That's why I ordered that one, yes.
Yeah. Great art. This was from the guys who did Thumbs.
Okay, yep.
Which was also an Omnivore pick. Actually, I think Thumbs was a
good book. I would not have read that one had that not been part of the Omnivore program, but I read it because it was.
Yeah. So Thumbs was it's by the same guys who did Thumbs, which was great. And it was just a really solid Weird West first issue. And I'm really curious to see where the rest of the series goes. I'm actually hoping it gets weirder because the first one wasn't as weird as I had hoped for a Weird West book.
Well, but I would say this one's he's on a holy terror going against werewolves.
Yeah.
And the next story, it's a one and done story. It's just an 80-page comic.
Gotcha.
With a little backup story from his. He's got a current modern day setting superhero group called the Night Club, which I kind of dig. And it's like a little epilogue kind of tacked on there as the end of the nightclub story. But the next issue is him going after vampires from the artwork that he's put out.
Nice.
So the dude traveling through the Old West, taking on werewolves, vampires, wendigos, whatever. I'm on board for that.
Yeah, Above Snakes was a little more Sergio Leone, say, a little a little quieter, but still with some of those supernatural elements to it. Anyways, I really dug the first issue. I had hoped it was going to do a little bit better for me, but unfortunately, they don't all hit, right? I mean,
sadly, they do not.
You do your best, and they don't all hit. But again, it's hard for me to talk about periodicals because I'm not really pushing those right now. Now when that book, When Above Snakes, comes out in trade, I'll probably do a bit better with it. I can probably sell it to a few more people. But it's really weird how little interest I'm seeing in new books, at least on my neck of the woods. And I guess at the end of the day, it's okay because I'd rather sell a $20 trade than a $4 floppy.
Well, yeah, that said, you probably get a better markup on that trade too.
Yeah.
It's because a lot of trades you can get pretty affordably if you could know where to dig and find them.
Yeah, if you're ordering through the right distributor.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is the trick these days to everything.
Speaking of the distributors, and you said something earlier about not wanting to give your money to DCBS, I'm kind of cutting my own throat a little bit with the knife of my principles, because I will not order any other distributor or any other publisher that they carry outside of DC.
Well, you don't have to though. Like
I know I
that's the
don't
one
have
thing.
to,
You
but it
don't
would
have
be
to.
cheaper for me.
Yeah.
It would be cheaper for me to do it, but I don't because of my principles.
And I think that's good, man. Like we need, like honestly, like I am of the firm belief that like we get the industry we create, yeah, to some level. Like there's a ton of decisions outside of our purview, a ton. But I also think that collectively, obviously a collection of retailers is literally herding cats because we all have different thoughts and opinions. But but if I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing that tells publishers what's working is what we buy.
Yep.
Like that's literally the only thing. And outside of the money we spend with the distributors and the publishers, it's all talk. Because we can, so I think voting with our wallet is really the only way to potentially make changes, is choosing those things. So as a person who frequently makes quote unquote bad business decisions because of his ethical choices, like I get it, man. I'm on board. But I love comics and I want comics to be around, and I don't know, I got to do what's best, what I feel is best for, to hopefully help move the industry forward a little bit.
I just wish I had another 7 or 8 customers like Alan, but he won't clone himself. I don't know why he won't do it.
Why am I such a good customer? My tastes are like all over the place.
I love that, but I also love that you come in and get your books regularly, that you actually read them, and that then we talk about them.
Well, it helps if you're an addict, and I'm an addict. I have a problem. I admit it. I mean, it is what it is. I know that my wife wishes that I would quit collecting comic books, but here's the deal. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't abuse my wife in any manner whatsoever. I don't cheat on her. I collect comic books. So if she wants the comic books to go away, she's got to pick one of the other 4.
That's a dangerous game.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a good. As Brandy says, admitting it is the first step. This is a safe place.
Yeah,
well played, Brandy.
At Planet Fitness, how it says judgment-free zone. Not here, Brandy. Not here.
We're judging.
Yeah, we judge.
So JR wants to know, what older storylines or titles are you seeing interest rising in? Are you seeing anything pick up in your neck of the woods?
Fantastic Four, I think, is going to see a nice upswing. I think especially with them coming to the MCU, I think we're and being the premier Marvel Silver Age book, essentially. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to continue to see some nice upswings there.
I hope to goodness that all the Doctor Doom stuff pays off, because one of the few books I have that's worth anything at all is Fantastic Four #5.
Wow. No, that's great, man. I've got a buddy of mine who's been trying to get one for years, and they've just been, they're astronomical these days. They're insane.
They are. They absolutely are.
Is yours what kind of shape is yours in?
It's a 4.5.
Wow.
Let's see here. Maybe the time of year, but for some reason I'm hunting down some of the old Charleston titles. We've got a Bear and Werewolves, the Haunted Library. I know we've got one of those at the shop. It's just a random issue that we have. I think it's on the spinner rack. I think that's where it is.
I've got a bunch of Nth Man in my dollar boxes.
Yeah. Nth Man. I just like Larry Hama. Speaking of which, Larry Hama is going to be at a convention 2 hours away from me. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a massive G.I. Joe fan.
Yeah, I think I see.
I don't know what would give anybody that impression. Not to mention, I have bookshelves all around. I'm an English major. My wife was an English major. We have more books than is physically good for anyone. But I have G.I. Joe action figures like all over the place on these shelves. It's probably not good. But Larry Hama is going to be at a convention 2 hours away from me this Saturday, and I've had things crop up, and I can't go, and that is breaking my heart.
See, that's why we need to get Larry Hama at the Huntsville Pop Culture Expo next year.
Right, because that's just right down the street, and that's good stuff. Same speech in my house.
Speaking of G.I. Joe action figures, I need a phone number for somebody at Previews. They have not gotten my Zartan and my Cobra Trooper here yet.
I haven't gotten the latest release with Spirit Iron Knife.
Yep.
Was supposed to come out in July, and my buddy Damon got one at the end of June, and they told me it would be August before I get mine, and so I'm still sitting here waiting.
Yeah, it's funny how sometimes, I can like send you an email or something and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. Can you get this? And you're like, yeah, sure. And it seems like 2 weeks later it's in my box. And then other times it's, we might get
it. It never shows up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you order through Diamond. A lot of times Diamond, if they don't get enough orders for something, they'll cancel the order, but they don't tell you that.
Oh, well, that's nice of them.
You're just like, oh. And then maybe eventually it'll show up on your invoice along with a bunch of other stuff in a random place that just says canceled orders. And you're like, oh, well, thanks for the heads up.
Yeah. Well, and what I just learned the other day was that apparently when they offer again items in previews, that doesn't mean that they got more in. It just means that they're relisting it. So it may not even be in stock.
That's frustrating.
So when you see offered again in previews, it might not even be available. They're just putting it back in the catalog as a new item to be offered.
That seems like a not great business plan.
You would think, but I just found that out because we were talking about it in, I think, the FOC group on Facebook. And Brian Hibbs mentioned it, and I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense for why so frequently you'll order an offered again item and it just never shows up.
Yep.
Because I'm sure you've noticed that too, right? OA items, frequently you'll order them and they won't show up.
Yeah, that's really bad business practice on their side. You shouldn't offer to sell things you can't provide.
Yeah, it's real weird. And sometimes I'll go and look right away and it'll still be purple in Diamond System. Like the purple
means
triangle.
You're never going to see it.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know, but
we just refer to that as the purple triangle of death.
Yeah, I think everybody does. I think that's just the general, I think everybody just decided that was what we were calling it.
Yeah, because you're never going to get it. It ain't happening.
Yeah.
So you already offered a little bit of insight into where you think the industry may be headed as far as tours being a curated space that kind of more specialized. Are any other insights into the industry you think of that say if you want to put on your prognosticator hat and say you're your best Nostradamus and say here's what I think is coming down the pike?
Well, I don't.
Hey, hang on, you need to look at this comment.
Yes, Brandy. If you message me, I'll always ship.
Yeah, she is in Texas someplace.
Well, Brandy, if you're watching, reach out. I will always ship. Hit me up on Facebook or Insta, and we'll get it taken care of.
You could not ask for a nicer dude, Brandy. He is awesome.
I love Michael DeForge, and Freak Buck Anthology is amazing. So yes, very good stuff that you're finding on my Instagram there. But as far as stuff coming down the pipeline, honestly, I'm more worried about the decisions that the companies owning Marvel and DC are going to do rather than Marvel and DC themselves. Those are the things that concern me. Obviously, I think Marvel has some. Marvel, they're still the number one publisher, so they're going to still continue to see that success. I don't see anything changing with that, But
if you flood enough books into the marketplace, you're going to be number one, whether they sell or not, right?
And that's been the strategy. That's been the strategy for how many years now?
Decades.
So many issues and one shots, and then everything has 3 to 5 covers on it, and we flood the stands. DC, they're just in a huge period of flux. Who knows what Discovery's going to bring? Does Discovery even know they own a comic book publisher? I don't know. Like, I'm sure
Discovery's got their hands so full with Ezra Miller right now, they don't have time for comic books.
I mean, yeah, just
the decision to proceed with an Ezra Miller vehicle,
just stop.
While shuttering the Batgirl movie.
And now they're talking
I'm
about,
like, you guys should flip flop that. Come on, man.
yeah.
Can the Flash and release Batgirl? That's what you need to do.
I mean,
Honestly,
Batgirl has got Michael Keaton in it as Batman.
I know.
What they should do is just release the Flash on HBO Max, straight to DVD, Blu-ray. Call it good. Who wants it, and
leave it alone.
Yeah, and just leave it alone. Recast him. I mean, honestly, who really and truly wanted Ezra Miller as the Flash to begin with?
Yeah.
I thought that their casting of a young teenager kind of a guy that really smacked of Marvel trying to create the Tony Stark Spider-Man relationship and trying to make the Flash the comic relief. Like, Barry Allen was never the comic relief.
No.
That was not his role.
Well,
Barry was a straight-laced police scientist. Like,
yep.
What I'm really tired of in the MCU period is, well, in fact, just Marvel movies period across the board. I'm really hoping that with after No Way Home, we finally let Spider-Man grow up and become an adult.
They're not going to do that.
As far as Marvel movies and stuff has been concerned, it seems like he's been a teenager for the past 100 years. I mean, it's like everything. I think the last time we truly saw an adult Spider-Man on screen or live action was that one that came out in the 70s that I can't even think of his name right now, toward the late 70s.
And the one you're thinking of, yeah.
I mean, come on, we can let him grow up. I mean, in another reality, him and Mary Jane are married, and he's pretty much the last superhero with a kid. I mean, why can't we do something like that with him just one time?
Because they like to make money and they don't want to alienate their audience. It's the reason in the comics they wanted to get rid of Mary Jane and get him unmarried and all those things they tried to do. And to the point where they're like, okay, I mean, I've heard Joe Quesada talk about this on multiple occasions, right? He's like, look, we never should have married him off. The minute we did, that aged him up and took him out of being as relatable to our target audience. But now that we've got him married off, we can't get him divorced because that ages him up and has negative connotations. We can't kill her because that ages him up and makes him sad and pitiful. So in absence of anything that makes any logical sense, we're just going to make a stupid decision and have the whole thing be Mephisto. Wah ha ha.
Yeah, definitely not the brightest Spider-Man moment.
No, that was by far not my favorite.
But I think the issues I think are still, we still have printing issues, we still have shipping issues going on, and obviously I think distribution is still going to be an issue because who knows what's going on with that pretty much any given day, But I think it's interesting because as tough as some of those issues are, I think if we look at comics in a broad sense, creatively, there's so much good stuff going on across so many channels. Like it's if you're into classic reprints of comics, there's great stuff out. If you're into new stuff coming out right now, there's great books out. If you're into weird self-published stuff, there's great books out. It's like there's so much good art coming out at the same time that like the behind the scenes distro side of things is in complete chaos and shambles.
And that's the part we try not to put on display in front of our customers, right?
Right, for sure.
You don't look behind the curtain, not because we're trying to hide something, but because it's a mess.
Yeah. And, it's unfortunate that the issues creep in so frequently because all I want to talk about is comics. I mean, and, I run a 100% pure comic shop. I carry comics. That's it. Like, I don't mess with the toys. I'm not like, I like toys fine, but I'm not a big toy guy. I'm a comic shop. So I want to talk about comics. I don't want to talk about shipping issues.
Right.
Like that's what I want to do. Because that's what we're there
mostly
for,
comics.
right?
We've got some RPGs, and we have a handful of statues and things like that. But it's all comics and RPGs. They're two primary product lines we carry by a long shot.
Yeah, I started out with a few doing some indie RPG stuff, some small press, just because that's what I do. I like small press stuff. So we were carrying some indie RPG stuff, and we were getting a little bit of feedback on it, but and I'm not going to necessarily like discontinue, but it's not really a column we've been growing too much. So I don't know.
That's another thing where you being in a largely tourist area, that's going to play against you.
Yeah, it's
you're not
tougher
going to have
to
gaming groups there.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, I get it.
Well, man, I tell you, I have really enjoyed talking with you. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about? Whatever floats your boat. You want to talk about pasta? No. We're always good to talk about that.
Honestly, I think I'm good right now. I think we've had a great conversation, and we talked about pasta too.
If we totally learned one thing tonight, it is always break the spaghetti noodles before you put them in the water.
No. You had it backwards. Never.
Alan likes to do nothing more than to find a weak point and needle his way in.
All right, I get it.
Ketchup is just as good as marinara sauce.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
All right.
So as I was saying.
Well, yeah, but no, really. Thanks for having me on, Josh. It was great coming on to chat about comics and the industry with you guys.
Well, man, I really appreciate it. We love for our folks to hear from other comic book stores and retailers and guys who have been in the business and are fans of comics.
Sure.
So that we can talk about it. We really, really dig that. That's one of our favorite things to do. I had some people tell me it was a really dumb idea for us to bring on other comic book stores and talk with them. I think that's the dumbest thing in the world, man. There's plenty to go around, and you have a very different store than I have, plus you're in New York. I just am interested to hear how things are working for you and hear your background in comics. So I really appreciate you coming on. I think that was really awesome.
Yeah, like I said, thank you so much for having me, guys. And maybe we can do it again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't care what Phil says. I think you are a gentleman and a scholar.
Well, I appreciate it. And I'll have to yell at him next time I talk to him.
You got it. I tell you, we've got a little video here from our quiz show, trivia show days. That was what we played before our last video. And I think you'll dig it because it's my favorite one and it makes me laugh. So I'm going to play it again here.
We just need to find somebody to remove the question 10 out of it, so it says the end.
Yep. That one's a great one. But, man, we appreciate it, Edward. And everybody, if you're watching this live, we really appreciate you tuning in and hanging out with us. If you're watching this later on, listen to some of the stuff that he was talking about, man. If you want to know some indie books, some self-published books, some non-mainstream superhero books, and you want to know what the good stuff is, follow Edward at Pure Folly Books on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that. The man knows his stuff, and he is passionate about it. He'll be glad to talk to you about it and ship something your way. So,
yeah, always glad to ship. Always glad to ship. So,
there you go. Brandy's going to be. So, look for an order coming in from Texas.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandy. Hit me up, and we'll figure it out. And thank you guys again for having me.
All right. Much appreciated, everybody. We will catch y'all later. Thanks, everyone.